has in fact come out to state. Estimates that Iran war has cost at over $11 billion in just a matter of 6 days. That's the report that's coming from the Trump administration themselves. Officials from the President Donald Trump's administration have estimated during a congressional briefing this week that the first 6 days of the war on Iran had cost the United States at least $11.3 billion, which is, again, information that's coming in from a source familiar with the matter. The figure from a closed-door briefing for senators on Tuesday did not include the entire cost of the war, because remember, this accounts for just 6 days. We are on day 13th. But it was provided, this figure was provided to lawmakers as they have clamored for more information about the conflict. Several congressional aides have said that they expect the White House to soon submit a request to the Congress for additional funding for the war. Some officials have said that the request could be for as much as $50 billion, while others have said that the estimate seems lower. Rohit continues to be with us. Rohit, you know, while we're discussing about the West Asian part of it as to what exactly is happening on the ground there, let me understand within the Congress in the United States what seems to be the current status of matters, because there is already as much as $11.8 billion that's been spent just in the first 6 days. We are speaking on day 13th, so that amount anyways becomes a whooping double, probably if not triple at this given point of time. And the Trump administration has asked for approvals for further fundings in this very war. How are we looking at the situation, economically speaking, within the United States at this point of time?
Well, when war started, Shreya, the estimate was it was going to cost $1 billion a day. So even if you look at that, you know, it's cost more than that in the first 5-6 days. So yes, the Congress will have questions. The Democrats are going to ask questions to the administration about how much is it costing. Obviously, there will be a question about funding the war in the long term. And again, we'll have to see if that goes through. You already know this probably, that the Democrats are not even funding the Department of Homeland Security right now because they have some reservations and ideas about how to fund it, the DHS. So I think at some point in time there would be an understanding that the administration would have to have with the Congress on funding the war, and also how much money is getting spent on this war. What it does, though, and I don't see a reason why the Congress would not. I mean, we're talking about lives of American soldiers, so there'll be questions asked, but eventually I'm pretty sure that they will fund this war. But then there will be some kind of guarantees that will be requested, at least from the Democratic side of the U.S. Congress. That's number one. Number two, the longer this war goes on, the higher the bill mounts. It creates pressure in a midterm year on this administration to basically end this war. I mean, we've seen this play out during Iraq war, during Afghanistan too. Anytime we see this war that goes on forever, it creates domestic pressure on the administration. So I think eventually, if this war goes on for, let's say, another week, 10 days, we'll see this cost, as some are estimating, to be about $50 billion. And then people will ask for accountability from this administration. So again, it's in best interest of everybody to end this war as soon as they can, especially once President Trump is convinced that the targets have been met and there's a leadership that he can talk to.
Right, Rohit. Rohit, thank you. We bring to you breaking news coming in from the war theatre itself. 2 foreign oil tankers hit in strikes. On camera, what can be seen is oil tankers up in flames. This is a ball of fire that's engulfing an oil tanker caught on camera. Oil tanker that's been blown up at the Iraqi port. 2 foreign oil tankers were charred in this strike, as can be seen in this very visual. 2 foreign oil tankers have been attacked in Iraq's port of Al-Faw. These are the visuals that have come in of the Al-Faw port in Iraq, of the coast of Iraq for that matter, wherein we see these oil tankers completely engulfed in flames. We will in fact take more details on the same from Rohit, who continues to be with us. Rohit, yet another oil infrastructure having been hit in this region. If we are to just analyze the amount of oil infrastructures that have already been hit, what we're discussing here is not just blocking oil being transported from a certain region to another. we're speaking of oil infrastructures being blown up in the first place. Be it storage facilities, be it tankers. So the oil that's already been produced and collected, that in itself is currently being destroyed, which only deepens the crisis of a shortage, because then what happens is the world heads towards a region where that oil in itself is not available to anybody. And that is this is yet another example of what we are looking at here this time in the Iraqi port.
And that has to be the strategy of Iran. I think, Shreya, we called it a few days ago, that the way Iran would want to create pressure on America, on the world, to intervene and ask them to end this war would exactly be this, by attacking the oil fields, by attacking the infrastructure, by attacking these US bases and whatnot. But it was always going to come down to attacking the oil infrastructure, making sure that they don't let the oil pass through Strait of Hormuz, making sure there is the crisis of oil. And by doing so, I think what Iran is doing is sending a message to the world that we will do this. We'll keep doing this unless, the US can stop this war and try to talk to us in a way that again has been said by the Iranians themselves, that in a respectful manner. So we'll have to wait and it is not going to de-escalate anytime soon. President Trump believes that there are certain targets that they want to hit. Iran is not giving up. They are attacking. They are sending a strong message by attacking the oil infrastructure, creating this crisis so that it put pressure on the world. And again, as I've said earlier on the show, some people in Iran believe that this is the right time to teach a lesson.
This seems to be the strategy. Very true, Rohit. This seems to be the strategy that Iran has taken up. Because remember, initially, viewers, the attacks that were first made on oil infrastructure was from the US side. And these were oil infrastructures across Iran that were first targeted by the United States. And that's the strategy that's now picked up by the Iranian side to hit back at both Israel and the United States, a cost that the entire world might have to pay very, very soon for this very war. Dubai, long seen as a glittering oasis of stability in a volatile West Asia, is now feeling the heat of regional conflict. Since the war involving Iran escalated, Dubai's airports, ports and iconic landmarks have repeatedly come under threat, shaking investor confidence, rattling markets and dealing a severe blow to tourism. Has the City of Gold lost its safe haven status then? Is Dubai dream coming undone now? Here's a report on the same. Take a look.
Dubai has long been considered a safe haven in a turbulent West Asia. But the City of Gold is no longer immune to the chaos in its neighborhood. Two drones fell near Dubai International Airport on Wednesday, injuring one international, two Ghana nationals, and one Bangladeshi national. Amid the heightened security situation, the UAE has temporarily banned all UAVs and light sports aircraft as a precautionary measure.
There are 4 people who have reportedly injured. They have been taken to hospital for a treatment. So on the vicinity, when it happened, air defense was activated. And since this has happened last night, 2 rounds of the alert were issued. And this morning, before the alert could issue, eventually they traced down to. And remember, there are fighter copters from the UAE. They're also flying in the air. They have a radar system to intercept.
And this is only the latest in a string of incidents shaking the emirate. Dubai's critical infrastructure and global landmarks have repeatedly come under threat since the onset of the war on Iran. Iran's retaliatory strikes have hit Dubai's airports, hotels and ports. From Palm Jumeirah, which houses luxury resorts and high-end residences, to the iconic Burj Al Arab, global symbols of luxury have witnessed explosions. But beyond the physical damage, investors and expatriates in the city have to face a much bigger economic impact. For decades, Dubai built a reputation as a safe haven for global wealth, tourism and investment, a place where business thrived even when the region faced turmoil. Now, that image is shaken. The city's property market has dropped sharply, with real estate indices down nearly 20%. Wealthy investors are beginning to rethink major commitments. Surging oil prices and regional instability are rattling markets and supply chains. Amid tourism, the lifeblood of Dubai's economy has plunged, with footfall down by nearly 70% since the conflict escalated. If the conflict continues to escalate, Dubai's hard-earned reputation as a global financial safe haven faces serious risks. High net worth individuals and international firms may reconsider their operations or even relocate. The question is, can the City of Gold rebuild trust, or has this conflict caused an irreplaceable collapse of the Dubai dream? Bureau Report, India Today.
Focus is on the West Asia war. It is day 13. Breaking news that's coming in. US-owned tanker Safe Sea Vishnu attacked in Iraqi waters in a suspected drone attack. The ships on fire are the Maltese flagged Zephyros and the Marshallese flagged Safe Sea Vishnu. The registered owner of the Safe Sea Vishnu is US-based company Safe Sea Transport Inc., while the Zephyros owner is based in Greece. Iraq's oil marketing company Somo said ships were attacked while present in the side-loading area within Iraqi territorial waters. The Zephyros was preparing to enter the Khor al-Zubair port and was carrying condensate for the Basra gas company, as per Somo. Now, the attack occurred within Iraqi territorial waters, according to the head of media at Iraq's Joint Operation Command, as per the Lieutenant General Saad Man. He called the attack a violation of Iraqi sovereignty and said the country reserves the right to take full legal action. You can see the blazing inferno as the two tankers were in fact struck. This is the Al-Fa port in Iraq, where the two tankers were struck, and now this is yet another escalation on a different front that we are bringing to you on your screens, with this two tankers, foreign tankers, US-owned tanker Safe Sea Vishnu, and what we are learning, the ships on fire are the Maltese flagged Zephyros and the Marshallese flagged Safe Sea Vishnu, both of which has been charred in the Iraqi port of Al-Fa at this point of time. And this remains to be another development on the very front where oil infrastructure across West Asia has been made targets by both the US and the Israeli sides, as well as the Iranian side, as attacks, counterattacks continue. This very visual, dramatic visuals of the massive fire that's engulfed the two ships on this very port bring to you an idea of how the global energy supply crisis is deepening, with such oil infrastructure being targets. Rohit Sharma joining us on the broadcast with more details on the same. Rohit, let us understand the impact that we're given to understand with oil infrastructures consistently being hit, the latest one being in the Al-Fa port of Iraq.
Look, this has always been one of the concerns everybody had. I think people were obviously concerned about that this could lead to, the kind of scenes that are playing out, attacking all these oil fields, attacking oil tankers and whatnot, the threatening of Strait of Hormuz, Iran making sure that no oil could flow through the Strait of Hormuz. So we are definitely, looking at the consequences of this war, which is in its 12th day. Now, to ease some of these, concerns, the United States has said that India can buy this, oil from Russia. India can, in fact, buy more oil than whatever is available in the market in the Gulf. And today, the United States also announced that they're going to release about 172 billion barrels of oil from its own reserve. So I think the war is taking its toll. It is pressuring countries to push them to take extreme measures. And this is going to be the strategy from Iran. I mean, President Trump has said that he could end the war whenever he wants to. but looks like Iran, would definitely not want it in certain way. There are leaders in Iran who are saying that they want to drag this war out. They want to ensure that they drag this out to let the world know that they, and especially the Americans and Israelis, that they should not be doing this or something like this in the future. So I think we will probably see more pressure tactics by Iran by attacking these oil fields and by making sure that everybody feels the pinch. So we'll have to wait and watch. But this, I mean, we've been discussing this for quite some time. I think this was always on the cards, and people feared that Iran would actually resort to things like this, and those are the scenes that are playing out right now. So nobody's surprised at what's going on, but somebody will have to figure out how to stop this war.
Right, Roy, thank you for putting it into perspective for our viewers there. And on that note, viewers, we have more breaking news that's coming in on this very particular front. Let's take a look. Iran attacks Bahrain fuel tanks. Bahrain claims back-to-back Iran strikes. On camera, Bahrain oil tank blows up. Bahrain says Iranian-linked attacks targeted fuel tanks. Bahrain's Ministry of Interior said Iranian-linked attacks targeted fuel tanks at a facility in Muharraq Governorate, northeast of the country's capital, Manama. Authorities are taking the required procedure so far, as per the ministry reports. Now, this is the latest in the entire matter, where escalations are taking place on the front, where oil infrastructure has been made targets in this very war, which brings global oil supply to a very deepening crisis at this point of time. And why do we say deepening crisis? Because not only is oil being allowed to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, which accounts for almost as much as 20 to 30% of the entire supply that goes out to the world through this very route, but also the fact that already stored reserves of oil that's been drilled and kept, those are now being attacked, and the drilling means are now being attacked across this Gulf region, which remains to be a very big concern at this point of time. So this is what we are learning about. This is, again, this particular report is from Bahrain. So no country currently is in fact safe when we speak of oil targets being hit. We've looked at Oman. We've taken a look at the Al-Faw port in Iraq. Of course, the initial targets off the coast of across Iran as well, when we speak of oil infrastructure having been hit. Now we are looking at those very targets and that very war against oil infrastructures in the region expanding in West Asia to include other regions like the ones that we are showing you on our screens. And this is what we are learning. This is Muharraq in Bahrain that we are speaking of, wherein the ministry's reports have come in of this tank facility, fuel tank facility that has now been struck. Breaking news coming in from the West Asian War Theatre. BJP now claims big diplomatic win for India amid war. BJP says Iran letting Indian tankers pass Hormuz. Key leeway after Jaishankar Arakchi talks. Iran allows Indian tankers Pushpak and Parimal to pass through that very Strait of Hormuz, which continues to remain a major area of escalation, because Iran had completely blocked the strait, and even till date, on day 13th of the war, has said that no ships shall be allowed to pass here, and has warned US, because US has come out to say that ships can be passing through and that they will be providing protection. But the Iranian side has consistently maintained a warning to even US that if any ship is allowed to pass through that region, that will have very grim consequences. They will in fact attack those very vessels. But amid all of these escalations taking place, while a little while ago we were bringing to you reports of how they are laying, reports have suggested that Iranian sides may be laying sea mines in the Strait of Hormuz region. Indian ships, Indian vessels, tankers that is, have been allowed to pass through the very Strait of Hormuz after talks have taken place between Abbas Arakchi and S. Jaishankar, both foreign ministers of the country. And these are the tankers Pushpak and Parimal. The first ones that we're hearing of have been, in fact, let to be passed through this very strait. More tankers, of course, are being kept a constant track of, being monitored to, in fact, check if there are more tankers that can be given a leeway, because India at this point as we speak does have a deepening crisis of LPG supply. And while crude oil, we do have Russia stepping up their exports to India to help out in the current situation, in the shortage. There is still a little less of a gap in the supply when we speak of crude oil, but it is the domestic gas, the energy that is required domestically, LPG, that is what we use for cooking. That particular part, that particular sector has been facing a major, massive crunch. And the Strait of Hormuz, rather the Gulf countries, are a major, major source. In fact, if we speak of countries, we have countries like Qatar, which are major sources of that particular energy supply coming into India, which is why the Strait of Hormuz blockade indeed remains to be very concerning, not just for India, but the rest of the world. But right now, we do see the BJP coming out to claim that talks have been successful between the two foreign ministers, Abbas Araghchi and S. Jaishankar, and they have in fact come out to conclude that Indian ships, Indian vessels, tankers shall in fact be allowed to pass so far through that Strait of Hormuz. This is Donald Trump spent $5.6 billion to kill Khamenei. These are latest reports coming in. US spent as much as $5.6 billion in just the first 2 days of war. Trump estimates the cost of war at $11 billion in just 6 days. First 6 days of war cost us $11.3 billion. That's what Trump has come out to say. Trump may seek more $50 billion fund for war. Now listen in to what exactly has been said by Donald Trump. But before that, we will bring in Pranay Upadhyay into the conversation here to understand what this means. Pranay, a very good morning to you. Let's understand one thing very simply. Towards the beginning of war, it had been said that per day this war is going to cost the United States around $1 billion. That clearly seems to have surpassed the total amount given by Donald Trump right now for the first 6 days, clearly seems to have surpassed that estimate. But just the mere amount of $5.6 billion at this point that was used to kill Khamenei, these numbers coming in as US also inches towards midterms, how are we looking at it?
Good morning, Shreya. And these numbers are just estimates, because these are the broad estimates of the US strikes, the amount of resources put in for these strikes. Because as per the estimates of the United States Central Command, they have already shot 5,500 missiles in Iran, and in fact these strikes are going on with every hour. So definitely there is a mounting cost of this war on the US exchequer as well as on the common people of United States, and in fact that questions are being raised within the United States, that how long this commitment is going to be, how long and how much will be the burden on the common US taxpayers, and why the President Donald Trump, who has always opposed of these long wars and long commitments, and has promised that he's going to relieve the people of the United States with more financial relief, and not let their tax dollars to be spent on the battlefield. But he's doing is completely opposite that, and that's why many questions are being raised, and there are fears, there are there are apprehensions about his midterm prospects, because his popularity has already gone down.
The dwindling, the popularity that's now been dwindling at this point of time, that's something that's very clear from those polls that take place as well, the surveys that take place before the midterm happens. And yes, Pranay, thank you for putting it into perspective for our viewers there.
Professor Inbar, the US may take pride in saying it sank 60 Iranian warships since the beginning of this war, but the Strait of Hormuz is being choked even as we speak by Tehran, and Iran is threatening the world with a $200 per barrel oil price. Does this indicate, and even as we speak, Iranian drones are striking Oman, does this clearly not indicate, sir, that US and Israel are not on top of the escalation ladder?
First of all, we should remember that every state, or almost every state, has emergency reserves, for several weeks, several months even, of oil. Therefore, this is only a temporary crisis until the United States will be able to clear the Hormuz Strait from the mines or whatever other security threats are there. I dare say that it will not take them more than 2 weeks to do so. After all, much of Iran's military capabilities have been destroyed, and it cannot, sustain a closure for a long time.
Okay, so you're saying it's 12 days, wait another 2 weeks, and that's not a very big price in your view for what the world is going through or the regime in Iran. Ray Locker, 12 days of intense carpet bombing, wave after wave of airstrikes and missile strikes on Iran, and Tehran still has the ability to virtually shut down the Strait of Hormuz. Just an hour ago, a couple of hours ago, you had the CENTCOM chief, US Central Command chief, Admiral Cooper, saying 5,500 targets have been hit in Tehran, 60 Iranian Navy ships have been sunk, but the Strait of Hormuz perhaps remains as vulnerable, sir, and now the world is feeling the heat.
Oh, absolutely. Look, we've seen this movie before with the U.S. military. We attack a country, we're involved in some kind of military action, we throw around a lot of numbers about the things that we've destroyed, the people we've killed, and yet it doesn't always work out the way we wanted. You look at what happened in Vietnam, we had body counts every day, we killed so many Viet Cong, yet we left there in shame. You look at Iraq. Oh, yeah, we blew up Iraq. We toppled Saddam Hussein, yet we were mired in a war for 10 years because of an insurgency. There was a military war game in 2002 called Millennium Challenge, in which they simulated an attack on Iran. And one of the reasons Iran did well in that simulation was the use of small boats to harass U.S. naval vessels. So, yes, we have sunk a number of Iranian ships, and that has diminished their capability. But they have a lot of things at their disposal, and it's basically a home game for them because we're on their turf. And it may not last forever, but they are going to bottle up the Straits of Hormuz. And if you're an insurance company, are you going to insure a tanker going through that waterway? No, you're not.
Absolutely
so people aren't going to go. And so there's a lot of problems, and this administration has not thought any of them through. They try to give us,
Give me a moment. Give me a moment. There's breaking news coming in, and I want to go full frame on these images. These are images that are just coming in from Oman. We were just mentioning this a moment ago. Iranian drones have hit the Salalah port in Oman. It's a drone strike. It's an accurate drone strike. It's an oil storage facility that's been targeted at the Salalah port. Drone strike at Salalah port leads to a huge, ball of fire and plumes of smoke that go up, Sandeep. The Americans may say, Sandeep, that the last of the 4 Soleimani-class warships have been destroyed by the US. 60 Iranian warships have been sunk. The Strait of Hormuz, controlled by Iran even as we speak, and their drone strikes, they are causing a lot of devastation across the region. And Sandeep, what is worse, Iran appears to be laying sea mines. Is that a dangerous escalation by Iran?
Well, it certainly is, Gaurav, and this is a scenario the Iranians, have been rehearsing for decades. In fact, a lot of what is going on today reminds me of what happened during the so-called tanker war of 1980 to 1988, when both Iran and Iraq were attacking each other's tankers because they were economic lifelines. They literally shut tanker traffic in the Persian Gulf and, of course, the Straits of Hormuz. Since then, Iran has worked very hard, as one of our guests was mentioning, on the kind of low-intensity brown water naval assets, and a lot of that has to do with mine warfare. They've invested in mine warfare capabilities, small speed boats, unmanned surface vessels, and one of the most important aspects of that are the mines, naval mines. Now, these are terrifying weapons of sea denial. They're used by typically the weaker adversaries to mine large areas of the ocean, to deny vast areas of the ocean, narrow straits like this, lay ambushes, prevent the adversary from using those stretches of ocean to harass the enemy. All of these are capabilities that Iran has invested. They're believed to have something like 5,000 sea mines. There are particularly deadly versions that they've got from China, which is rocket-propelled sea mines that rise from the bottom of the sea, from the seabed. So it has invested heavily in these kind of capabilities, and this is precisely the kind of capabilities they're putting to play right now here as they're waging economic warfare, Gaurav.
Okay, huge black plume of smoke seen rising from the port right now at Salalah. Professor Inbar, Oman Salalah port has been hit by drones again. Multiple oil tankers docked there have been targeted. Reports suggest there's significant damage to the vessels at the port, to the tankers. Fortunately, no human casualties. Does this mark dangerous escalation by Iran, and what is Iran hoping to achieve through this measure when it targets not just American interests, Israeli interests, but all the GCC countries? And of course, for example, a ship was targeted. It was a Thai flagged ship that has just been targeted a short while back, sir.
The strategy of Iran is quite clear. They want to create damage in order for the Gulf states and the rest maybe of the world to put pressure on President Trump to stop the war. But the question boils down if the world is ready to be blackmailed by a radical Islamist regime that supports terror everywhere, or to put an end to it. So it's a clear strategic and moral question. And I think that all peace lovers, freedom lovers, should join in the campaign to change the regime in Iran in order to have a normal country.
Yes, but how long will this operation continue? It cannot remain endless, Ray Locker. Do you think all these actions of Iran are, one, aimed at ensuring that GCC countries put pressure on America to stop these operations? Will this pressure work? Because just a short while back, American President Donald Trump was quoted saying that there's practically nothing left to target inside Iran except Mujtaba Khamenei and the regime remain firmly in power, sir.
I doubt very much if this escalation will work.
The Iranian
Go on,
regime
Mr.
is
Locker.
dangerous. They've been dangerous for a long time. They can't really be trusted. So they are a clear danger in the region. But they're doing what any country would do when it's attacked, is they're trying to defend themselves. And so they're doing everything at their disposal to get allied nations to back off, to people to say, stop doing this. And we did not anticipate this, as at least this administration didn't seem to anticipate this. And I don't feel confident that they really have a game plan about going forward. And that's concerning. As an American, I want to have a stable world and a stable economy. And I don't think this does that. I think it destabilizes everything. And this is something that Donald Trump talked about when he ran for president the first time. The Iraq war destabilized the Middle East. Well, this has destabilized the Middle East, regardless of what we think the ultimate goal should be.
And I agree with you, and it's very worrisome should you say that this wasn't war game, Sandeep. If this wasn't war game, it reflects very poorly on the war planners and those who are executing it, because the first thing that Iran would have done is choke the Strait of Hormuz.
Exactly, Gaurav. And, we have been discussing this for several days now, right from the, even before the conflict began, we've been wargaming these options, that the fact that Iran would stop the Strait of Hormuz, it would blockade the Straits of Hormuz, the kind of capabilities they have point precisely to that. So what beats me is that why did the US not plan this? Why did they not see this through? This was something that the Iranians have been threatening to do for decades. This should have been very obvious that the impact of this is what I call a gunfight in a gas station. And that is exactly what is happening right now. It's a gunfight in a gas station. It's one of the most important gas-producing regions, oil and gas producing regions in the world. And the world is bearing the consequences. And Iran is, obviously, it is increasing the price that the whole world has to pay. If the US thought that this war would be confined just to Iran, the regime there is disproving that. They have expanded the theater of conflict. They're making multiple countries pay this economic price and build pressure on the United States. As very quickly, Gaurav, two things will decide the outcome of this war. It's going to be markets and it's going to be munitions. Whichever can pressurize the United States, that is going to see the end of this conflict.
And right now, markets are on fire, and the apprehension is if it leads to massive inflation, if it leads to a crisis in the markets. When it comes to ammunition, Iran, will it run out of ammunition? There are reports that seem to indicate they're getting some help either from Russia or from China or from both. They prepared well after June 2025. But for a moment, I want to focus on the Strait of Hormuz and the impact on the world. The big question is what happens if the Strait of Hormuz remains shut for a longer period, for a prolonged period? If this critical waterway is blocked, global energy markets, one, will be in tailspin. Two, they'll have to rely on a handful of limited alternatives and alternate routes. None of them that can completely replace the Strait of Hormuz, because remember, this is a supply route. It's also a route from where oil comes in the first place, and gas from Saudi Arabia, from Qatar, from Iran, of course, itself. The first alternative route, of course, lies far west. And I want to show you the alternate route. The Bab al-Mandab Strait, which connects the Red Sea and the Suez Canal. Now, this route carries oil shipment to West Asia and from West Asia to Europe and the Mediterranean Sea. So it's a very crucial Asia-Europe trade route. But this is far from secure. Over the past several years, one of the Iranian proxies, the Houthi forces in Yemen, they've targeted commercial shipping in the Red Sea corridor, and they've repeatedly disrupted traffic. And that highlights Iran had control of one choke point directly here and the other vulnerable route through the Houthi forces. So the second route is also very vulnerable. The second option is Saudi Arabia's east-west pipeline, also known as the Petrol Line. Now, this Petrol Line stretches roughly 1,200 kilometers across Saudi Arabia. The pipeline moves Gulf oil from the Gulf Coast to the Red Sea port of Yanbu. Now, this permits shipments to bypass the Strait of Hormuz almost entirely. But the maximum capacity this pipeline carry is about 7 million barrels oil per day, while the volume is significant. But still, 7 million barrels a day is way below the 20 million barrels a day that transits through the Strait of Hormuz. And then, of course, there's the Habshan Fujairah pipeline of the United Arab Emirates. And this pipeline links Abu Dhabi's oil fields to the Fujairah on the Gulf of Oman, effectively bypassing the Strait of Hormuz for part of the region's exports. However, again, remember 20 million barrels passing through the Strait of Hormuz to roughly 1.8 million barrels through this route. So alternatives are there, but the reality is stark. None of these routes can replace the Strait of Hormuz, and that is why the Americans now say their entire focus in this part is to ensure Iran does not remain strong on the Strait of Hormuz. And Professor Inbar, how difficult would it be for Israel and America, despite taking down 60 warships, despite targeting 5,500 targets inside Iran, take control of the Strait of Hormuz? Because so far, Americans have refused to give even shipping cover. American Navy refuses to give cover to merchant vessels or tankers crossing this region.
Well, first of all, I think the Americans offered to escort ships in the Hormuz. Second, they try to subsidize insurance costs. But the main lesson of this crisis is that such choke points should not be ruled by irresponsible states. And we should do everything possible as a democratic world to make sure that along those choke points are military forces that are keeping those navigation lanes open. And irresponsible states should not be allowed to have to be able to blackmail the rest of the world. And I think we should go back to maybe to 19th century and to make sure that such choke points are being held by friendly forces.
Okay. Well, pre-1979, as you know better, Iran was a friendly force when it comes to Israel during the regime of the Shah. But Ray Locker, you agree that's the only way that ensure Iran no longer controls the Strait of Hormuz, though that's easier said than done. And in your appreciation, how long could that take, sir?
I have no idea how long that would take. I mean, it would be great if Iran was led by a friendly regime. I mean, I think if we went back in time to the 1970s, we would put the Shah back immediately because it was more stable. I mean, he had his problems, but compared to the current regime, way better. But I don't have an answer for that. I mean, and I don't think anybody does. You'd have to have a full-scale rebellion of the Iranian people backed by a lot of arms coming from God knows where. And that would take a long, long time. You have a regime that shows no interest in making an accommodation with those people. And, you know, so it's anyone's guess how long that would happen. I mean, we can all wish that it's going to happen, but I don't feel confident that anybody has the wherewithal to make that happen.
Or the roadmap either. Sandeep, is there a method to this madness? Iran's power is being degraded systematically, is what the Americans say. Their missile launch capabilities, their missile storage capabilities, their missile manufacturing capabilities, their drone power, IRGC command and control centers, 5,500 targets taken down in 12 days. The time frame that the Americans off the record talk about is between 4 to 5 weeks. They would be in a much stronger position that symbols of regime are taken down and then the people may rise. You think that's likely to happen, or by then the impact on the world would be devastating given what's happening at the Strait of Hormuz?
Yes, absolutely, Gaurav. And you know, I think it's not going as per plan, the US plan at least, the Iran war. It was meant to be a short, swift operation, decapitation, regime decapitation, massive bombardment, and Iran would capitulate. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened. They're heading into the second week now, and while the number of projectiles have reduced, they're continuing to hit a swath of territory from, you know, all the way from the Mediterranean, as we saw, to Oman, that's on the Arabian Sea. That's the entire zone has been converted. The entire area has been converted into a free fire zone. They're all within range of Iranian rockets, missiles, ballistic missiles, drones, and Iran seems to have plenty of those in stockpile. So this aim of the US seems to be now to tire out Iran, exhaust them, destroy their missile launchers, but we clearly don't know how long that's going to last, because the Iranians seem to be you know, planning to fight for as long as it takes. So this is a very, very slippery situation that we are entering into, Gaurav. And you know, it reminds me of those words that we've been hearing in past operations in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Vietnam even.
Yes.
It's of mission creep, that you get in with one set, you're not very clear what your end state is, what your objectives are, and then you start getting dragged into God forbid, boots on the ground. That is something that...
Well, there was a backgrounder briefing for some senators in the United States yesterday, and some of them were very apprehensive about boots on ground. The last 30 seconds I have on this part of the show, Professor Inbar, Mujtaba Khamenei has not been seen in public post the 28th of February. There were reports that said that he's alive but injured. If he's not seen on Friday for the Friday prayers in public, for the Al-Wida Namaz, would that be a signal? How is Israel viewing this?
Well, it seems that he was injured by an Israeli attack. And in the meantime, we found out that he was the owner of two Hilton hotels in Frankfurt, Germany, a series of houses on a very fashionable street in London. It's a corrupt regime, and we should put an end to it. If the world thinks that oil is important, it should fight for it, and not allow this type of rogue regime to interfere with our daily lives.
Okay.
It's simple. It's like giving in to pirates.
US spent as much as $5.6 billion in just the first 2 days of war. Trump estimates the cost of war at $11 billion in just 6 days. First 6 days of war cost us $11.3 billion. That's what Trump has come out to say. Trump may seek more $50 billion fund for war. Now listen into what exactly has been said by Donald Trump. But before that, we will bring in Pranay Upadhyay into the conversation here to understand what this means. Pranay, a very good morning to you. Let's understand one thing very simply. Towards the beginning of war, it had been said that per day this war is going to cost the United States around $1 billion. That clearly seems to have surpassed the total amount given by Donald Trump right now for the first 6 days. Clearly seems to have surpassed that estimate. But just the mere amount of $5.6 billion at this point that was used to kill Khamenei. These numbers coming in as US also inches towards midterms. How are we looking at it?
Good morning, Shreya. And these numbers are just estimates because these are the broad estimates of the U.S. strike, the amount of resources put in for these strikes. Because as per the estimates of the United States Central Command, they have already shot 5,500 missiles in Iran, and in fact these strikes are going on with every hour. So definitely there is a mounting cost of this war on the US exchequer as well as on the common people of United States, and in fact that questions are being raised within the United States that how long this commitment is going to be, how long and how much will be the burden on the common US taxpayers, and why the President Donald Trump, who has always opposed of these long wars and long commitments and has promised that he's going to relieve the people of the United States with more financial relief and not let their tax dollars to be spent on the battlefield. But he's doing is completely opposite that, and that's why many questions are being raised, and there are fears, there are apprehensions about his midterm prospects because his popularity has already gone down.
The popularity that's now been dwindling at this point of time, that's something that's very clear from those polls that take place as well, the surveys that take place before the midterm happens. And yes, Pranay, thank you for putting it into perspective for our viewers there. We're speaking of the impact